Hi guys! In the last video you learned all about the first 4 river valley civilizations that we know about that existed in the world. Today we're going to dive into some detail on one of them. The river valley we're going to focus on today was called Mesopotamia. It was in the Tigris and Euphrates river valleys. There's actually 2 rivers that this civilization is nestled in between or right around. Okay, this civilization is in the Middle East. The 2 rivers are called the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. And the area around those 2 rivers is referred to as the Fertile Crescent. If you know what a crescent is it's a shape. A crescent is kind of like a half moon. And the word fertile means good for farming. Because of the flooding that happened with these rivers, it left behind deposits of silt and minerals that made the soil extremely good for farming. And we know that you need that as part of a new and growing civilization, is you need agriculture and farming. So this area is called the Fertile Crescent. Like I mentioned, there were floods in Mesopotamia in this civilization. They were not predictable floods. It flooded regularly, but they really had no way to pinpoint when it was going to happen. So that was a challenge they had to face in this civilization. They made the most of it. There were benefits. Like I said, the soil became very good for agriculture, but they still had to deal with these unpredictable floods. One of the ways they could do this was through irrigation. The word irrigation simply means bringing water from where it is to where it is not. So the way that Mesopotamians did this was through drainage ditches or canals. They would dig into the earth, creating canals so that when the river did flood, it went into the canals instead of washing away the whole civilization. They actually directed where that excess flooding water was going to go, much of it going to their farmland. So it made it useful for them. Well, when we think about the different aspects of civilization or features of civilization, like that first video we watched in class together, one of them is religion. Now, what historians and scholars and archaeologists and anthropologists have found about the Mesopotamian civilization is that they did have a religion, and it was polytheistic. Do you remember what polytheistic means? Polytheistic means worshiping or belief in many gods, not just one. So polytheistic, important term to remember. Archaeologists have found these stone temples, or the ruins of stone temples in the Mesopotamian civilization. They've called them ziggurats. And what historians believe is that these temples were made for religious worship. We know that through the writings that they left behind, which we'll talk about in a moment, Mesopotamians had multiple gods that we think they would use these temples for to worship the different gods. In fact, what we think is each city or each major city in the civilization of Mesopotamia had a designated, like a patron god, right, or one of their gods dedicated to protecting that city and representing that city. Again, this is our best guess based on evidence that we've found, archaeological evidence and things that have been left behind. The system of writing that they had, and part of the reason why we know some of these things about ancient Mesopotamia, is because the Mesopotamians had a system of writing. We've found clay tablets that have these wedge-like symbols in them, and that was their alphabet, their system of writing. The style of writing, their alphabet, that system of writing we call cuneiform, or sometimes people pronounce it cuneiform. Either one is fine. That's the translation of that word, means wedge-shaped. And that's exactly what the writing looks like, little wedges carved into the clay. So let's talk now about the government system that we think Mesopotamia had. Now, we know that the purpose of government is to maintain order in a society so people aren't running rampant. There's some organization to how people live their lives and do their jobs. In Mesopotamia, the leader of the government was basically like a monarch, what we would say a king. We say that they had divine right. divine right means that your power or your right to be the ruler came directly from the gods. We know that the Mesopotamians were polytheistic, so whoever the leader was claimed that the gods gave them the power to rule, and everyone agreed with it, and that's how their government was formed. They were okay with that. One of these divine right rulers in the government of Mesopotamia, the most famous one that we know about, is a guy named Hammurabi, King Hammurabi. We know that he was the ruler of Mesopotamia from about 1792 to 1750 BCE, before the Common Era. He was the king of what was called the Babylonian Empire. The Babylonian Empire, which was located in the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia. Now, King Hammurabi was pretty strong and powerful. He was able to expand his empire during the time that he was in control. And in order to unify that big empire, he created a set of very strict and harsh rules for his civilization. This has become known today as the Code of Hammurabi, the code or the laws of Hammurabi. Now, archaeologists found the Code of Hammurabi on this big, tall stone. It's called a stele, or it's like this obelisk-looking thing. It was carved in cuneiform into this stone, and it was a list of crimes and punishments. Sometimes you'll hear the phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, referring to the Code of Hammurabi. It's a little misleading. When you think an eye for an eye, that would mean, well, if one person pokes out my eye, I get to poke out their eye. If somebody knocks out my tooth, I get to knock out their tooth. And this is true in some cases, that equality, but in many cases it was not equal. For example, if I'm somebody who is low on the social status and I knock out a rich person's tooth, well, guess what? It's not tooth for tooth. It's death for a tooth, basically. It's very harsh punishments based on your social class, also based on gender. Oftentimes women were seen as, well, based on the law, less valuable, and their punishments was even more harsh if they got caught in some kind of conflict that the government needed to resolve. It wasn't always truly equal in reality. All right, that's all I got about Mesopotamia. There's more to learn, but that's what you're going to do in your research in class on your own time.